Welcome, one and all, throughout time and space for this episode of Weebs on the Weekends, the podcast where we break down the anime news highlights of the week and give a retrospective look on an anime that premiered 10 years ago. Today's episode, we will review the 2024 anime special Monsters 103 Mercies Dragon Damnation, with a recurring guest, Jack. My name is Sam Martinez. I'm a part-time weeb, full-time automail mechanic. With me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Johnson, part-time weeb, full-time Daikoku counselor. Please bear with us this episode as we are using technology that is newer to us here at Weebs on the Weekends. We believe this is one of the ways that we can grow. It's just that there's some fine-tuning still needed as we embark in this transitionary period. This episode format is also a little different as we discuss our anticipations before watching Monsters, and then return to record our thoughts immediately after watching it. It's as close to going live without doing so. It was just thought best to record the episode with a more relaxed than usual tone so that our initial reactions are unhindered during recording. Please let us know on the socials what your thoughts are, and if you yourselves enjoyed this anime special as well. As always, time codes are in the episode description. Without further ado, please enjoy our episode.
And we're live.
Yeah. And go power start or go start or hyperdrive, overdrive, mock, whatever. But yeah, okay. So yeah, what were you going to say, Jack, about the story before?
About the story.
Yeah, do
Regarding
you know anything
Monster
about
and
yeah.
Oda's previous work for One Piece.
Right. Yeah. One of the big frustrations that over the years I haven't seen remedied by anybody at Viz or any of the English publication um, is that Oda has a collection of what I imagine are short stories. I haven't read it. Called Wanted, which won him an award before One Piece really took off. And for some reason, I've seen that collection has been published in other countries and other languages, but there's not ever been, at least to my knowledge, an official English adaptation or publication of it, which is a real shame. If there was one, I would love to dive into it.
Was it just a one shot?
I think it was originally, and then it became kind of a collection of different stories. I don't know how many, but I think that Wanted was one, and then there were several others, and then they got republished as a grouping that was also called Wanted. I could be mistaken about that.
No, you're right. I think it's the collection or what's that very long eight word anthology collection
Yeah,
essentially. But
anthology. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. Because like I was going to come in here like saying, oh yeah, it's interesting how fandom works, especially in terms of like certain creators. Because like you look at Kishimoto with Samurai Number Eight, kind of flopped after Naruto, but now Boruto is kind of the mainstay of his legacy, even though he only came back recently to write on it. Same thing with like Tai Kubo, who does Burn the Witch, but it has nowhere the fame that Bleach has. So I was very curious about the reason why most people that are like One Piece stans don't know about Monster and other Oda properties. So I didn't know there was a translation issue. That none of my One Piece friends uh, told me about
The few and the proud.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
few and the proud.
and I was like, oh yeah, it was One Piece year. One Piece came to the Macy's Day Parade. We had the live action. And I
Oh
was like,
man, I was really tensed up for Thanksgiving. And my wife will
Really?
tell you I was obsessed with trying to make sure I did not miss seeing Luffy in the parade.
mhm.
I was butthurt because I was driving the entire time. I could not catch the parade at all.
They got that wrong. For some reason, it wasn't inflated.
He ended up becoming Bucket Hat. It was like straw bucket hat.
And oh yeah, we also got the news that I forget what studio it is. I believe it's Studio Wit is doing a reimagination, or not, maybe just another adaptation of One Piece, starting this year.
Yes,
I
like
believe.
you said, studio.
One Piece Kai. It's One Piece Kai, people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was one they never really made it clear because they made it seem like they were doing another East Blue, but like the trailer, just as like I said, the trailer made it seem like it was just going to be like a standalone thing, but now it seems like they're redoing the whole series, even though it's still ongoing. I guess that's why I'm like confused on it. So, like, what are your thoughts on that, Jack? Because at least with Dragon Ball Kai, Dragon Ball Z was already done, but One Piece is still going on. How do you feel about this?
Well, it's gonna be difficult for me because the uh earlier episodes of the anime from 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, those episodes are what I think of when I think of the One Piece anime. So to see a new treatment by a different studio um tackling what I imagine is going to be the same events, maybe more tightly focused on the way the manga portrays those events, maybe not. I don't know. But it's gonna be surreal, and I don't know that it. I mean, personally, I think it's interesting that, of course, the anime is continuing, and we'll probably get a full season of this new version of the Studio Wit anime before the actual flagship show is completed. I think that's a little strange. It's a little premature. I'm wondering why this was announced so soon after the success of the live action Netflix version of the show. I'm wondering if the two of those things were connected, but not sure. I mean, to get these One Piece announcements, not so much side by side, but side by side with the positive reaction to the Netflix show. And then all of a sudden, hey, Netflix is going to get Studio Wit to do a One Piece adaptation again that's also covering the events of East Blue, which the live action one did. I mean, it's easy. It's easy for me to fall into the temptation of saying, well, maybe these two projects were somehow connected, or that somehow the success of one would determine whether the next one would go. I don't know. It's going to be surreal. I'm probably going to watch it, but I don't know if it's going to. The OG show in those early episodes will always be near and dear to my heart, and it's hard to imagine a different version doing a better job of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's just fair because I think the connecting factor is that it's his 25th or 25-year anniversary coming up in or this year, 2024. Given that you have to look at marketing wise, is that those big 5, 20, 25, 30 anniversary dates, at least in Japan, marketing wise, is a very successful thing. So if you plan the live action and the remake around the same time, especially when Oda has been hinting like very recently that One Piece is coming to an end. And again, you can always say that, but yeah, there is like at least strong indication that Oda is probably wrapping up, well, especially given his health concerns recently. I think he's been dealing like the most severe with his health in the past few years. So if he wants to wrap it up,
Oh,
it makes sense
jeez.
that this year and
Oh,
next year would probably
jeez.
be. Yeah, not wishing anything bad against the man, but he's been in full drive since he was like in his early 20s or late 20s. Um, so the demand of where One Piece is right now is high, but interesting about this, Jack, I would be wondering if they were taking the live action Netflix version and then turning it into an anime version. And that might be what Studio Wick is doing since Oda is so integrated into the script writing, is that they also know how the live action is going to play out. So they might just do a animated version of that version, which is Snake eating its own tail kind of thing. But I think it would be very interesting to
Yeah,
see like.
that's kind of interesting because it makes you wonder, like, how many decisions were made in the live action version by virtue of the fact that it is live action as opposed to animation, and then an anime studio is going to come along and bind itself and restrict itself to the limitations that the live action show experienced. That would be a very, I don't know if that's a, I don't know if that's a wise.
Yeah, I'm just thinking pacing wise, again, like the whole, the whole discourse around One Piece is that it's too long. So I was like, okay, if you don't
Yeah.
like the original anime version because it's the pacing issues of it, then here's the Netflix animated adaptation version of it where you get MIHAWK earlier, you get scenes cut out from Baratie, which I know Jack loves very deeply. But like this, if you're not going to sway people on live action, then a animated version of the live action might also be more appealing. So even though it is eating its own tail essentially, or cannibalization of the material, it's like how do we make One Piece more palatable to people? And this might be the direction, or maybe that might be the thinking to
Do you,
why
th-
it works.
Yeah.
do you think that they would take the OVA length route?
Oh, that's interesting because that model, at least for streaming, has kind of been dead for, I guess, the past 5 years because of the freedom, like you said, of what can be done in that time. But I think who said it? It's like very interesting about movie making versus TV show making. It's like those limitations are hard set for the pace of the story. So if something has to be designed for an hour versus something that's designed for 20 minutes, the pacing of the events unfolding is differently, especially from a psychological standpoint. Sorry, not to get too deep about it, but a lot
I
of
mean, it
people
makes
rather
sense.
watch. Yeah, a lot of people rather watch. I think some content creator said this. It's like they rather watch a 1 5 hour video than 5 1 hour videos, essentially. So,
But we've
maybe.
seen that in some recent animes, they on Netflix, like Go with Spriggan, where like that series has like 8 episodes, but each.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, Pluto specifically is for older audience, but again, I think the thinking might be that One Piece is so dated now that the uh, younger audience are kind of like, oh, One Piece looks old.
One
What's
Piece
the
is for
new?
old people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So,
guess
fair
guilty as charged then.
or Jack, do you have any thoughts that you would like to share regarding the live action series? What?
Well, two big things. The first, I was stunned at how good it was. I don't think it was perfect. Um I don't think it was the greatest show in the world by any stretch. If I had never heard of One Piece and I watched it, I probably would have been a little bit like, well, what's the deal with this? Why is it's a little bit pirate story with a twist to it. That's obviously got influences from something else. But I was blown away by how good it was. I think that fidelity to the source material was paramount. It may not have always been paramount if the rumors are to be believed and the behind the scenes discussions, especially from Oda's perspective, and some of the comments that he's made about it. But I think ultimately fidelity to the source material in the important beats won the day, and I think that's a reason for its success, the success that it's been able to enjoy. The second thing that really stood out to me is, man, this cast that they went with, they really, really tried. They really threw themselves into it. Every single one of them threw themselves into the part, and I cannot remember what's the guy's name who plays Luffy. Um,
Oh, Iñaki.
yeah, that
He's a
guy.
Mexican dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. My goodness, he really tried to be a cartoon character, and I believed it. I believed it. Um, that is a very difficult thing to do. I remember watching him at the end of the fourth episode on the Going Merry as it sails off, and he's like shouting "Yahoo!" like on the on the front. And I remember watching that, going, "Man, that guy is throwing his chops into it." The only quibble I have with the cast is I think Zoro was a little bit too
Yeah.
deadpan. I think Zoro has a little bit more personality than we saw, but still, I mean, on the whole, if you have a good respect for the source material and you have a spectacular, dedicated cast of performers, you can't go wrong. And the not just the Straw Hats, but the other actors that played the different characters in there. Especially Hawkeye MIHAWK's actor. I mean, everybody was just giving it their all. I thought, and it showed. So those are my two big thoughts.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, or at least what the community was saying about Zoro's performance, is that he was playing it like post
Oh,
blue.
the time.
Yeah, essentially, like after he gets defeated by Mihawk, it's the little bit slower version of his character. Because I always forget. Because if I hadn't rewatched the East Blue arc with you guys before, then I would have not remembered how comedic Zoro is in like the beginning of the story. He's very more on the Luffy spectrum of comedic timing of things, and like very joyful and bouncy in his character. But yeah, if you just know Zoro from like post, I guess Marineford or even Sabaody, it's like yeah, this is that Zoro. But yeah, I think that's probably what people were missing out on from his performance. But yeah, for sure.
The thing that surprised me was the actor who Sanji. He had a is that scene where he saves Luffy from the water, and it was just a flyby scene. I'm like, wait a minute, I missed something, and I went back. Homie is shredded. He has like a whole 6 or 8 pack. Like his abs are just popping. And I'm just like, how are you just gonna fly by these abs like they didn't happen, TV? Like this man worked hard. It was just very surprising to me because like they were saying how like he also took like kickboxing. I don't know if he might have done capoeira as well. Just physical training for the role. So just like as you were saying, like how everybody giving their all for the and I do. It was interesting that you said that it seemed like Yoda had some issues because with the announcement for the second season and some of the news leading up to it, it seemed that I'm sorry, but Oda was on board the entire time. At least like from my perspective,
Well, there's a reason the show was in production for a whopping like 2 years. And part of that was because of I remember seeing this like official statement that came out where he was like, look, I'm not going to support something that's a subpar product if I think it's a subpar product. And then Netflix like released an official response statement that said, hey, we're going to work hard, we're going to do this right, we're going to we're not going to make something that is going to be a disappointment, we're going to succeed with this. And this was like several months before it got released. It may have even been a year before it got released. Um, that tells me that some stuff happened behind the scenes that resulted in some creative conflict along the way. Evidently it got resolved, but
Yeah, there did seem to be, at least from what the news was reporting about it, and from Oda's own statements and Netflix issue statements, is that it was like that 95-5 kind of difference. It's like Netflix wouldn't budge on certain points, but most of all the control and creative input was coming from Oda. Where you compare that to Cowboy Bebop, where the creator, oh, oh, what is his name? Shishiro Watanabe, and that he left the project because Netflix wouldn't budge on things, and we know how that panned out.
yeah.
So I think Netflix learned from that experience. Even if you look at the Yu Yu Hakusho, which didn't have Togarashi as like a consultant or much of his input, still was like mid of the adaptations recently by Netflix. But I think Netflix did take their lesson from Cowboy Bebop, saying, yeah, we need to give Oda all the control, and we need to make certain points stand as our own show, that it stands as not just a faithful adaptation, but just a loyal product of the source material, but not just be another Oda production, essentially. So it does make sense that that's the kind of split that they had, that 95-5.
I do have like one question. I think we might have talked about this or off air, but on air, I am curious on what you both think they will do in regards to Chopper for the live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the camp of having a child actor for a while until I saw some very decent visual effects on what Chopper could look like in a 3D model. And again, like how jarring that might be to have these live action actors against a 3D model. But again, if Netflix, and at least from the success of the first season, has shown anything, is that the profitability of this is wild. So whatever money they want to dedicate it, and if they want to take a step back from casting, and I forgot what a popular fan cast was for Crocodile. Um, Same thing with Nico Robin. Oh, Nico Robin was. Oh no, I'm thinking about the Doctor Corella.
Yeah, Dr.
Um,
Correa,
yeah, with Jamie
Amy
Lee
Lee
Curtis.
Curtis.
Yeah, but again, she's like kind of passionately talked about the role, and I don't think she's going to say like, "Give me all your money."
No, I feel like if you'd be like, just give me a donut or a biscuit and I'll be there. It's like I just want to
Yeah,
be part of the product.
yeah, she has been really great in her, I guess, her elder years and acting, especially with the Halloween movies. But yeah, I think she's going to do this project if they do cast her. Essentially, they haven't announced that yet, but do that for like her new staple of this new generation. But yeah, I'm in the camp that the virtual effects can be done well enough if the proper amount of Netflix big cash money is given to it. So I'm in the camp of that.
What about you, Jack?
It can only work and be believable if it's a CG. I think you can have puppetry for some of the shots where you wouldn't be closing up on him, but if you're seeing Chopper's face, no matter what form it takes, I think you gotta do a CG character. You just got to. He doesn't look remotely like a human being in any of his forms. I mean, his human beast form, I guess, is the closest, but even then, he clearly has the face that you look at Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it was that Rudolph special that he did with SNL.
Yeah, you cannot do that. I'm sorry, you can't do that. One thing about that though, Chopper, one obvious concern with Chopper being CG is you go, well, hey, that's gonna blow the dadgum budget. And it's like, well, maybe for Drum Island, but there's a couple of arcs that hopefully the season 2 will not skip over before Drum Island. And during Alabasta, there is a lot more going on than just with Chopper. And Chopper's involvement in Alabasta is very minor. So if you wanted to be smart, you could devote the allocate whatever massive, ridiculous amount of time and money is going to be necessary to do a good animation job. Focus that on Drum Island, and then, maybe that will make it so that it's easier to do that, considering Chopper's presence both before and after that is kind of minimal within the context of the Alabasta saga or Baroque Work saga. You can really, assuming they do season 2 with a similar structure they did to season 1, you could conceivably have Drum Island be one episode. You could conceivably do it that way, and you could also make it to where, Chopper's big Baroque Works battle is the sole opportunity where we really see serious effort putting into his special effects. Because obviously when he's fighting, he has to do those transformations, and he doesn't do them all during the battle with Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas. So if you wanted, you could you could maybe cut him from the rain dinners aspect of helping Sanji / Mr. Prince get them all out of the cage. You could probably cut that. I don't know. There's ways to do that character justice while at the same time not blowing the budget and not making it so that it can be done well, I think, if you just allocate it to the spots where Chopper's character really, really does matter.
Oh, for sure.
It can still be done.
And I guess like for me, I feel like I'm on the fence, but I have proofing from my standpoint. Like I would like to bring forward to you, case in point, Jurassic Park, where uh, they blended both puppetry and CGI effect very very well. And you touched a little bit on that too, Jack. But I um I think they can do a lot more with puppetry and have Chopper in some of this little, like you said, not necessarily like close up like face view, but like have him in the shots with everybody, or at least like having him present there. Because I didn't realize that the Den Mushis in season 1 were puppets. I thought that was CGI, but even then, like they looked very, very well. So
Yeah.
seeing those puppetries, it makes me have faith that they can do Chopper's puppet pretty well, pretty good along the same line. So like I feel like if they do puppetry on that level and mixing it well with CGI, like I said, akin to what was done with Jurassic Park, I do believe they can do a lot more with Chopper. But I think, like you said, they're going to have to be smart about it and know when to go full Chopper. And I feel like he is a big test for Hero of One Piece because of some of the characters that's come out. Say, for instance, Brook, maybe Caesar Clown.
Oh, good lord.
Or even like Gecko Moria, right? Just like some of the more wild with the crazy design. That's all that I have.
I just had a question that we can transition out of. Is that,
Yeah.
Joe, do you think that, or this is only 25 minutes or 22, so it's a standalone special for uh, Ryuma and his backstory. Do you go into this with any expectations? Because from what I know, and I haven't uh, known too much about the character of Ryuma, but he's like known as a dragon slayer, and I was like, I always assumed that there was a dragon, and since the full title of this is like Mercies 103 Dragons Damnation, is that, do you think it's actually a dragon, or is Ryuma known for slaying a celestial dragon?
I'm sorry, did you first of all, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say damnation of 103 dragons?
I think that's the full title, but it's really ridiculous. I know it's
103.
like yeah.
Well, so what very little I know, and what little familiarity I have with Ryuma's character, I think the dragon is closer to what you would think of as a literal dragon, as
Mhm.
opposed to the celestial dragons, who are neither celestial nor dragons.
Oh, interesting. Do you think it's a literal dragon? Because again, I'm not familiar with mythology and One Piece, but I would think since we just finished Wano, the connection with Ryuma and the maybe previous owner of Kaido's devil fruit, that might be the dragon. I'm just speculating, but that might be the dragon he's slaying. But if you were to guess, what do you think the dragon actually refers to?
Oh man, this is gonna be the boring answer, and if I'm proven wrong, great. But I'm gonna go with the what I think of as a dragon, and if that gets disproven, I'm happy to be disproven. We'll see. I'm gonna go with
Okay,
actual
cool.
bona fide dragon, connected or not with the devil fruit power. We'll see.
Okay, cool. And I guess the other thing was, do we think just in 20 minutes, do we see him get his, is it Susui that is that the one he gets, Zoro gets
His
from him?
sushi is
Yeah,
sushi.
yeah. Do you think we see him get the blade, turn it into a black blade, or do you think he already has the black blade and he's just using it, period?
Oh man, I think it would be really fitting, I think, to show him acquiring the sword and the significance of the sword. I think we're going to see it for sure either way. If we do not see it, I will be surprised.
All right, sweet. That's all the expectations I'm going into it with. I just want to see some cool dragon slaying and some lore building.
Because how far back into, because the Void Century still was a thing back.
That was 800 years prior, right? The Void Century.
I would not be the one to ask, but I'm assuming that it's happening after.
Oh, so I'm looking at the One Piece Wikia regarding Shimotsuki Ryuma, and apparently his story happened 23 years before the current story.
I thought it was older than that. See, what I really want to see is how Gecko Moria acquired his body.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I don't
Gotcha.
know. I would be shocked if we saw that too. But like, that's one of those things that always makes me wonder. It's like, Thriller Bark, Samurai of the Wano country. How did he get here? What grave did you rob? And how did you get access to that grave? And you got the sword. Anyway.
I feel like we have to watch the credits, see if we're gonna get like Attack on Titan like end credits or something.
Do it then.
Let's do it. So we will be back
All right.
for our thoughts about monsters, guys, and we are back. Oh my goodness, guys! Ah, I feel like if I start, I'm just going to start gushing.
I'll start. My favorite part was when he said it's Ryuma in time, and then he Ryuma'd all over the place. I'm
I
sorry, I
can't
just had
believe.
to.
Yeah, for sure. Because I can't believe Thanos showed up.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Marvel crossed over with One Piece. Who expected
What?
that? Um,
What?
Nobody thought that Nika would be able to lift up Mjolnir. She did it. It happened.
it only took her a
Oh
billion
man.
years. Yeah.
Just like as we were watching, right? I really had to bite my tongue because of like what was going on. And it's like, yo, so like if this item was taken, why is this dude just like it's like if this item was taken and this guy claims that he has it, why is he doing X, Y, right? But now I'm just like biting my tongue, It's like no, this is Oda. It's like we're gonna get a good payoff. This is Oda. We're gonna get a good payoff. Then the payoff was very well done, and it was like, yep, like the heartbreak, the tragedy and loss that Oda is known for is, yep, that's what the setup was. That's what the setup was, and it was very interesting. One Piece is just like pirates and stuff, but with this one, it feels very very Western, which I think Jack, correct me if I'm, but like Wanted was like that, right? It was supposed to be a Western.
Oh yeah. Oda's made no secret that he was very much inspired, not just by um samurai culture and the traditions and imagery and iconography that goes along with that, but he was also very much inspired by westerns and old west imagery, and ironically enough combining an appreciation and a love for both of those things into a long running pirate story. It's kind of interesting that the big, I guess, synthesis of his work took that particular form. But he loves westerns, he loves cowboys, he loves samurai, and it was not lost on me that that town looked very much like an old west town. Yeah.
And I'd have to say too, like it was this story was also nostalgic since it reminded me very much of Afro Samurai and of the legendary headband. And I would say too, I guess Zoro's story intro the best swordsman sort of mirrors that as. And in this series, we get get rumors of the legendary master swordsman of the world, things like that, and the way that they talked about it, like Ryuma just wants to fight best around, and him run into a fellow swordsman, sort of set his heart ablaze, so to speak. But it was very interesting how Oda mixed both the samurai and the western there. Did you feel like it was too much of a chronoclasm, or because it's supposed to be set in the world of One Piece?
Did I think it was too?
Well, yeah, because you had mentioned how Oda takes Western samurai culture, loves them both. And in this story, you're essentially putting a samurai in the Wild West. And with that,
Well,
to cut you off.
the two sources I have more in common than you might think. That's why there's a Magnificent Seven from a Seventh Samurai. You know.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is one of the coolest things about Oda is that he will cherry pick and use different imagery, different styles, and he will throw it all together in a way that actually makes sense. Now, I noticed that the town looked like a Western town, but that story that we just watched was 100% focused on the characters. It was not focused on the environment. You did not really it didn't really have anything to do with that. So when you're immersed in a story that is entirely about character, I don't think it really matters what setting you put it in. Which I mean, maybe we're talking about One Piece where there's so much world building and all this other stuff. But for what we saw in particular, um, it's a tightly focused character story, and so uh, I don't think it throws the viewer off when you're just enmeshed in the conflict between the characters present. I think that one thing that kind of caught me, Shirano, that guy bears a strong resemblance to Cyrano de Bergerac.
And me who
Cyrano de Bergerac. Hang on, it's not a Shakespeare play. It's a hang on a second here.
do
Cheating.
quick Google.
It's a play. It's a play by Edmund Rostand, and it was written in 1897. It's a fictionalization. If you look at an image of Cyrano de Bergerac as he's played, he has a huge nose, which was not a real defining characteristic of the design of Cyrano here. But the outfit, the clothes, I think was based on it. And then, of course, you got the name. But as soon as they kept saying Cyrano, I kept looking at him. I was like, does he have a big nose? Are they trying to say that this is Cyrano de Bergerac? Because that's pretty cool. Like an Easter egg thing.
Oh, so do you think that with that character? Oh, okay. I'm looking at it right now. He looks, yeah. His nose, goodness.
It's a very goofy nose. People do
Very,
like
very
that.
goofy.
They have it
Yeah.
on a nose prop. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was gonna ask, like, do you think it was just an homage to that character, or do you think that it was more than that, foreshadowing? Or no, was
Well, unless I'm mistaken, and again, I haven't seen the play. I've seen scenes from the play in Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's how I know about this character. But
oh, okay.
unless I'm mistaken, I think the character of Cyrano de Bergerac is an imposter. I will tell you this: when I was watching it, I did not make that connection, and when it was revealed that he was in fact a bad guy, I was shocked. And the reason I was shocked was because of the lengths Ryuma went to prevent uh
Oh, to prevent from the
what was her
getting
name?
out.
Yeah. That, like I was kind of blown away by that, and then all of a sudden it made perfect sense, and I was like, that's a very Oda thing to do. You have a character that does not immediately on the surface appear to be noble and selfless. But then there is a situation in which they attempt to protect the delusions of a victimized character. That is all over One Piece.
Jay, you've been silent. Are you trying to gather your thoughts?
No, I'm just listening to you guys talk.
Oh, okay.
There is a uh, well, no. There is this thing that I'm thinking about more than the episodes itself. It's like I want to see more of this, and it's like
I
the
know.
same
I
way
would
as
watch.
we handled Star Wars Visions. It's like if they give a One Piece side story, even if you want to expand them to the cover stories, that again is like one of the deep things
Oh
about
yes,
One Piece
yes.
world building is like, oh, here's the cover story for chapter 372. Do what you will with it. And I would love that for anthology wise stories with this. It's like just these snapshots in the One Piece world and these non connected stories. Same thing with Love Robots, Death, Love and Robots. Love,
Yeah,
Death and
yeah.
Robots.
Love, Death, and Robot. Yep.
Yeah, it can be handled in the same way, especially if Oda is getting into the more mentality of allowing his stories in other people's hands. And even though I wasn't terribly impressed by this standalone, I could see more of this done by so many other people in so many different ways. So that's what I'm kind of contemplating on right now.
Oh, okay. This story wasn't necessarily headed by Oda, but it was his input on it.
I can't say that I mean, he of course signed off on it, of course,
Yeah.
but he wasn't as instrumental as he was with the live action Netflix
Oh, okay.
version. Yeah, I mean, this does pass the vibe check of, as Jack has been explaining, it's like, oh, this is Oda, obviously.
Yeah.
So it feels like akin to his work and his themes and motifs that he wants to address. So as long as it feels like it doesn't really matter. And it's just reverence for the materials that, they did justice to. And again, didn't really care about this singular episode, but I want to see more of it.
Why do you think that they took the story? Just it was he
Unless I'm mistaken, unless I'm mistaken, he is the only character from Oda's other works prior to One Piece that made it into One Piece. I may be wrong. I may be wrong about that, but I'm not aware of any others.
Mhm.
and Jack, could you refresh my memory? Because at the end of the episode, the flash forward, and at the end, Zoro said, "Let's just forget that this might even happen." I don't remember why.
He beat Ryuma, but he knew for a fact that he was not facing off against him when he was at his best. He knew he was facing off against
Oh,
a corpse. And that was essentially to some degree puppeted against its will by Gecko Moria. And even though he had power, even though he was, I mean, he'd kicked Brooks' ass like 5 minutes before. Um, in spite of that, Zoro is always a character that's like, if I'm, he has that in common with Luffy. If he's going to go toe to toe with somebody, he wants to go all out and have the other person go all out and make no excuses. And Zoro knew at the end, he's like, I beat him, but this is not, this should not count. I don't recall if he said, I wish I'd met you in your time, or if he said, I wish I'd fought you in your own time, but I think for him, those would probably be the same. I was pretty impressed. I was impressed. I liked it. I wish we had one of those for every one of the other shorts that were included in the anthology. That would be cool to see.
Yeah, as of right now, there's no stated plans by Netflix to handle those other stories and Monster or Wanted, but it's very interesting. Again, I didn't want to lead too heavily into all the background production stuff, but it's very interesting that this is done by basically a first time studio
is it?
and the director of Jujutsu Kaisen, the first season at least,
Yes,
Sung Woo
yes.
Park, who I was like, when the Black Flash moment happened, and then
Yes.
wow. And again, Sungwoo Park is Korean, I guess by the name, but I should actually know that. But yeah, I was like, oh, I like the style that this is the manhwa
Yeah, the
aesthetic
mono
to it.
aesthetic.
Yeah, compared to the high school, God of High School, Noblesse, and what's the one that came out recently? Solo Leveling. I was like, oh, again, I was paying a lot of attention to the background details of the story because it was like, yeah, this is just the simple or the motif or the frame of wandering samurai visits a town, saves the town, and leaves. It's the whole thing with Firefly, and again, something I don't think it's chronoclasm. You keep saying that word, Sam. Chronoclasm,
Yeah,
but it's
Chronoclasm.
not that. Yeah, it's not that because Oda takes inspiration from both of those settings is because they happened at the same time. And again, I guess Jack can talk more about that, but samurais and cowboys were early 1800s essentially in their own respective countries, but you know, if you
Okay,
travel across
yeah.
it existed at the same time period.
Okay, so then Chronoclasm is not the right word then. I would say uh culture clash, I guess. Because it's just that because it's like one of these things is not like the other, and it's just very very. I don't know, because like growing up, I've had it in my head that like these two things are very very separate, right? So like it never occurred to me that they could have happened, that they were happening in tandem. So
Literally the prime examples of East and West at the same time.
youth and Jay, you mentioned like if they do like Star Wars Visions thing, is there a certain story that you know of or a character that you like to if they do take the anthology route and they
Yeah, if it isn't anything isolated to monsters or wanted, there is a cover story of what's happening behind the scenes with the Straw Hat Fleet, like with all the different captains and they're returning back to their homelands or they're expanding their own pirate crews. I would like to see a couple stories like that, especially with the dude. I forgot his name because it's so hard for me to pronounce, but he has like dreads in the front of his hair. He's a big, bulky dude. Oh, he's the dude that throws Zoro at Pika during Dressrosa.
um
It's like a
uh
yeah. I'm sorry.
no 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 no
Dude,
no 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 trying to think because there was one. All I can remember right now is like the barrier guy. Um, let me look up the Straw Hat. He wasn't a giant.
he's a big dude, but I don't think he's a giant. But yeah, just if this is technically the so if Oda is wrapping up the story of One Piece, I would like to
Hmm.
see like some one shots of the coming big Marine Four Part Two kind of battle. It's like, what are all these One Piece captains and like it feels like such a glossed over moment because Luffy kind of downplays how big the fleet is, but that's a large reason why he's a Yonko right now. Not to sorry, maybe I'm spoiling One Piece.
What?
If you didn't know, if you didn't know.
Sorry,
Yeah,
if
I'm
you didn't
still
know,
I haven't even read volume 104 in the manga, and that, by the way, is how I'm keeping up with things. I watched the first episode of Egghead when it was on Netflix, like last week or whatever. But then I was kind of like, you know what?
you'll
I'm
wait.
gonna wait and do what I've always done. I'm gonna follow this in the manga when it comes out in the States. And
So where's the manga right now for you?
volume 105 is coming out soon, which should wrap up Wano, I believe.
Oh, so Jack knows.
Okay. Well, no.
I have not read 104. The last I read, Luffy was about to go to Gear 5, and that's really it.
No, no, I'm saying that you know about the whole Yonko. You know about the Yonko deal. That's what I meant.
I think so.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
Luffy.
because the Straw Hat Fleet happened in Dressrosa.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But anyways, I just mean
Hmm.
like anything is to connect like and to make this very impactful, not just these like scatter stories. I think this would be a good use of time to build up how big the people are going to be in the final war if we build up like what they have been doing in the meantime. And a lot of those cover stories are really interesting, like the warp.
Yeah,
How do you say the
Walpole.
guy's name? Yeah,
Wapo.
Walpole.
yeah, how he came
Yeah.
to power, kind of redeemed himself would be interesting, but I think that's been explored enough. But I think all the individual captains and all the individual world building that happens in that, and all the different islands, all the different people they interact with, would be very interesting to cover in these like little one shots.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Wapol's cover story. I had this theory for a long time that the town scientist that discovers Wapo metal, I was like, that's Vegapunk. That's Vegapunk right there. They're showing us so much early. And of course it was wrong. That was fun to pretend.
Yeah. But how about you, Jack? Is there like a side story or something in Wanted that you remember that you would want to bring into this kind of media format?
Oh golly! Well, I would love it if we got of an anthology series that was adapted from the Wanted like collection. I'd prefer to have a manga release because that's how it was originally done. But I mean, something like this would be really cool. And I think Oda's more than earned the. I mean, this isn't really a question of whether or not he's earned it. I guess it's a question of whether or not people would want to watch it. But I think that it's beyond appropriate at this point for One Piece, especially as it's starting to wrap up, to be like, let's take some of this guy's other work and put it to screen in the form of shorts like this. You mentioned Star Wars Visions. I think something like that would be perfect for this. But in terms of other stuff, man, one of the biggest tragedies of the anime is that they abandoned the chapter title cover stories. They did the first two in the anime. They did the
How Buggy
United.
ran into Alvita, right?
Yeah, and then they did 2 episodes of Kobe and Helmeppo's Chronicle of Toil, and those were amazing, and I love those. And for some reason, they never did them again. You just see characters in new locations without really understanding how exactly they got there. But of course, if you read the manga, you would see that. So I would love to see, um, I guess, short, limited anthology runs for the chapter title cover stories because a lot of them are interesting and a lot of them are really, really good. Especially the Baroque Reunion, that's a great one. The CP9 Independent Report is a great one too. That shows you how Lucci essentially got connected to CP0. Like not exactly connected to CP0, but you see what put him on the path to do that. The Baroque Reunion, you see how Mr. 0, 1, 2, and 3 all wound up in Impel Down, and you see what happens to the others. The Inaru's Great Space Mission would be entertaining.
Oh yes. Was
Oh
fun.
my goodness. It's just I think that it's ripe for that. You could also do limited series runs or specials for events that we are told happened during the 2-year time skip, but that we don't see. Now,
Oh yeah.
I may be mistaken about this, but I would like to see Akainu and Aokiji's battle at Punk Hazard. I don't think that has been shown, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
Only see in the aftermath.
Yeah.
That's very interesting too, because again, even though how deep One Piece's story is, there are a lot of battles that happen off screen that, if you just give it to the right studio, can just bring to life these very climactic fights, especially the Aikiji versus Akinu one, and I think the other one I would want to see would be Shiki versus Garp and Roger. Is that the one?
Oh yes, the event at God Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Golly.
I mean, that could. I mean, One Piece has been going for 25 years now, and I think there would be enough cover stories and things that happen off screen that could fill up another 25 years of One Piece content. Honestly, especially if you release it like this, it's like, oh, here's Science Rule, Studio Science Rule, who does a Devilman Crybaby, handle this fight, or Mappa, handle this fight. So it would be very interesting if this is such a success, even though for how stereotypical the story was, that people are just clamoring for more of this short media content to consume in the future.
One thing that would be cool is how Balboa Hancock became the Empress, or the moment where Law comes to the government doorsteps and drops 100 hearts at their hands. Like that would just be cool.
And how Gecko Moria got to be a warlord because he got Ryuma's grave and Shui 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 Shui.
Yes.
Yeah, Oh, that's a one shot I want to see. How did Gecko Moria get the body?
Or even like
Yeah,
with you were saying, Jay?
yeah, I was just gonna say to do something small, like even Shanks and Crew stealing um
Yes.
the food and company.
Goofy's
The gum gum,
the
not gum
gum.
gum fruit. The not gum gum fruit.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie. When I found out about that not being the gum gum fruit, that being something else, I was kind of pissed.
Oh my goodness!
Mm.
Like I'm not gonna lie, when they had when I had read Gear 5 in the manga, I felt like it was a cop out. I mean, because I felt like it was a cop out, but to Oda's credit, like he has been hinting at it, but it was a lot more subtle than his other hints with
I still think I'm calling it now. One Piece is the hat.
what, what's going to happen? What are you going to do if you had another Vegapunk moment where it turns out not to be the hat?
I'll cry in a corner.
Do you guys think we're going to get any more? Whoa. Do you think that they're going to do more with?
I mean, it's really hard when it comes to Netflix, especially with their streaming numbers and the profitability of their model. Thinking about that a little bit more, because again, that's still been a great mystery of the industry and of the streaming services movement recently. But I think this is a good proof of concept, especially if there's enough buzz around it. Because again, it kind of feels like it dropped unceremoniously, even though, like, if you look at it, it originally was published 30 years ago, and it doesn't feel dated in a way. Maybe because maybe One Piece is timeless. I don't know, but as we were just saying, there's enough enjoyment out of it. Again, proof of concept wise, it's like, yeah, just keep doing more of this. And there is obviously an audience for it, and people are going to be in a lot of deep depression when One Piece ends. So, perfect time for Netflix to come on the scene and say, hey guys, we have 30 mini shorts or 30 episodes of the slice of life or uh, different genre films, or like just again, there's just so much to fill out with the One Piece story that just doesn't go addressed because of how Oda kind of masterfully crafts his story. So it's like, yeah. And I think Netflix is getting into the model, or at least getting into the thought process of anime is a cash cow. And if you, because again, we're still coming up on like projects like the Gundam project, where they were celebrating a bunch of Gundam with Hathaway and new probably Gundam next year, probably 2025, and then other things with Billy becoming a more streaming giant focused in the West. So they're going to try to compete against them. So yeah, it feels like it's just a done deal that regardless of how people really react to it, it's a good testing the waters kind of presentation so far. So yeah, I think it's going to be something's going to come out of this.
What about you, Jack? Are you in the same camp?
Well, I certainly hope it's not a flash in the pan. It does strike me as a good business decision to test the waters with one thing like this, as opposed to just saying, "Hey, we're gonna do a bunch of stuff." You know, that's the Disney Plus way. We're gonna do a bunch of stuff. We're gonna put out all the things, and we just hope you watch it. And if you don't, well, then you're the problem. So I can see them choosing to put this out there as the obvious first choice, because the character Ryuma, his significance to One Piece, that's seen at the end, that makes sense to me. I certainly hope it is not a flash in the pan. I hope they continue to do it. And one of the things too that I think, you know, from the perspective of doing different anthology series within the actual One Piece storyline. I mean, I'm not the first person to say this. Lots of people have said this, but One Piece has a ginormous world that has been carefully and meticulously built over the decades. And even if you don't do a cover story, even if you don't tell a story that has been uh, referred to or hinted at within the pages of the manga or the episodes of the anime. There's still other stuff you can do. I maintain that the filler arcs of One Piece, at least several of them in the early couple hundred episodes, are not horrible, and I think I don't see that it would be um it's hard for me to say, hey, let's tell a different story about a different group of people in the world of One Piece that's not written by Oda. That's a difficult thing for me to say, hey, let's do that. That would be cool to see. But maybe you could tell a different story from a different vantage point. Talk about Marines. Maybe you could do a Marine story. Maybe it could feature cameos from the other characters. I mean, the One Piece world is so vast, and it covers a lot of history. I think, uh, assuming you got the permission and the blessing from whoever you would need to get it from, it's ripe for potential for doing different things. One Piece, instead of being a single story, has the potential, in my view, to become a franchise. Now, I wince a little bit when I say that because of the franchises that I'm a fan of. I do not think the balance of them has. I don't think that on balance it has been good for these different franchises to have as much as many different branching off points as they've had. But I think with One Piece you could do it as long as you did it the right way. You could tell different stories that are either part of the original story or not. I think you could. I think it'd be possible.
And it's interesting hearing you guys say that. So, and hearing Jay how he mentioned like a slice of life. So now I have a question that throw to both of you. Right? They were to make a slice of life in the One Piece world, where would, and assuming, right, like it's a stereotypical slice of life, you're following this kid going to high school, right? Where in One Piece said it? We can start with Jack.
Slice of life, as in like
So the character is going to high school. They are it's a coming of age story, things like that, and but it's set in the One Piece universe.
I would want a story set at either Marineford or specifically Navy HQ in the town where the Marines' families are. I think they said in the Paramount War that they abandoned the town, like all the civilians and all the people had to be. I may be misremembering this, but unless I'm mistaken, Marineford had a civilian population.
Have it done right before the Paramount War?
Oh
Afterward?
yeah, oh yeah, but before and after, yeah.
You're trying to go for the jugular right out the
Well,
gate there.
yeah, well, you could. I mean, it would be a. I hate to. This may be too dark and too on the nose, but I mean, you could have the Paramount War act as that young generation's 9/11, or just some massive, huge event that at least for that group of people defined their generation and affected the way they saw things. Like I imagine pirates were not popular with those civilians that had to flee Marineford after the fact. And even though the manga and the story generally, I don't recall if this is spelled out. I could be misremembering this, but if I'm not mistaken, uh, even though this is not like clearly seen or observed, a lot of people died, and you could have the trajectory of this protagonist's life altered as a result of that. Maybe they could become a bounty hunter. Maybe they would become a marine themselves. Maybe they would decide they didn't want anything to do with that and go on a completely different path. That would be interesting to see. And you could do before the Paramount War, after the Paramount War, and go from there. I keep calling it Paramount War because that's what the manga called it in America.
Yeah, I don't know why I got it because I think like it's like Paramount War or War on the Mount, but yeah, like you said, now at Marineford with Whitebeard and okay, but that's a very interesting. That's a very interesting, very strong case. It's you can make One Piece feel like Attack on Titan with that premise alone.
Na, 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 na.
Jay, I'm throwing the question to you.
Yeah, it's very interesting because there was two questions, one that a slice of life and then a high school story. So
Okay.
I you said slice of life, I thought, oh, just some random, in real world story about some dude in the One Piece world. But about the high school, what Jack just answered, I would say I would want to set a story at like a shipwright academy at Water Seven. So
That'd be cool. Yeah.
cover like yeah, I think it would like cover like I think it was like 5 years Lucci and other people were undercover. So that's
Oh
like kind
yeah,
of
you're
cool.
right about that. They were there for a long time.
Was 5 years.
Hmm.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a typical secondary school, high school length. So it's like, oh yeah, remembering the first day Lucci and them got hired at that factory yard, and then looking up to them as role models and the betrayal, essentially. So the same thing, like ending their high school career with this very traumatic event, essentially. So it would be really interesting, especially if, in the slice of life, they drop like ideas of what, like maybe the main protagonist could be thinking of, like, oh, how would I build Pluto or whatever that ship was, or like just kind of get behind or even drop more mythology about the ghost people that lives in ships. I'm sorry, I'm
Oh
forgetting their names.
yeah, the ship
Um,
spirit.
Flabouterman. Flabouterman.
yeah,
Outerman.
yeah. Even like go like drop that as like some lore background for like the slice of life, like put more of the like spiritual stuff into it or something like that. But yeah, I think that would be interesting. Get a little bit more into like go through like the catalog of what ships have existed throughout the One Piece world.
You guys better trademark your ideas right now. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks. We are living in a very like what what Jack says, like what a time to be alive, man, right? It's easy. Um that's that's all the questions, things that I can think of at any of you have any thoughts or comments or questions that you would like to post the group?
I'm good. Yeah, I was like interested in just I didn't really care for Ryuma's character, I guess as a closing thought. I was like, I'm not getting what he's supposed to be, I guess, in the terms of who is he supposed to be paralleling in,
Yeah, what he was supposed to
One Piece
represent.
proper.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was very like his character because like when he first draws his school sword against the dude, he like gets defeated, but I didn't get what I understood. Like he was the visiting samurai, wandering samurai from out of town, but he cuts the bronze statue. Obviously, he already has Emma, not Emma, the Black Blade again, Shushui.
Yeah, she was, yeah.
Yeah, it's like okay, the bartender clues in to that he's way more skilled than he's less on, but why did that draw happen at the beginning? So he's not like a clown
Oh,
character
yeah.
as strong as he is. He is the guy. He is him. But I was like, how he was going to present and, being a starving, wandering samurai and kind of having this disregard for people and lackluster kind of appearance. This is weird, off putting for me. Again, just speaking about trying to get engaged with the story. It's a very weirdly paced episode.
It
It was like
was.
it felt draggy in some places. I guess I went into it with way more expectations as we talked about in the pre-viewing sessions. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, he's
Gamble.
going to either die in this episode, or he's going to become a mummy, or he's going to get his first blade, or he's going to kill Kaido's the mystical Zoan fruit dragon, or like all these other. No, just some dude stops bad guys in town. Cool, and dragon fights for like 10 seconds, I guess. Um, so it was good.
It's
Again,
because he
great
won the
pacing.
emotional fight. It wasn't the physical fight. It was the emotional fight. That was
Yeah, like Jack Doe's character driven story. It was just like I didn't really care for his character. So either I want more of it or that's all there is to him for right now. But it's interesting in the way that they're like, oh, let's take this one shot and prove it out to what else could be done essentially. So yeah, good stuff. Uh, I would give it like a 7.5 out of 10.
That's a fair rate. That's a fair rating. Jack, that brings what Jay said brings one question that I want to ask you. Go into your thoughts and ratings and how Ryuma was portrayed. How close to the monster haunted works was his character portrayed? Was it spot on? Was it a varied approximation?
Well, if I had been able to read the story it was based on, I would be able to better answer that question.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I
Yeah.
had read it before. Never mind. I didn't mean to make you answer a question on
Hey, if
something you didn't
anybody
know about.
anybody at Viz Media is listening, it's time for an official release. You got to cut it. One customer.
Okay, so then we can go into your final comments and your rating.
Oh man, I'd give it an 8, maybe 8.5 out of 10. I wouldn't, the portrayal of the Ryuma character did not bother me that much because, and I mean, considering you have maybe like just a handful of Oda protagonists, I mean, they all tend to be people that are motivated, um, with a good blend of minor levels of selfishness but with a heart of gold at the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, so he's hot headed about the scabbard. He's hungry, starving. He's a little weird. I think that makes perfect sense for a protagonist in a story like this. I will say that um, putting that character in a situation where he is falsely accused of doing something bad, uh, I think it's necessary. Like for a character that is going to behave like that as your protagonist, you really got to test them. You really got to put them in a situation that forces them to prove who they really are inside. And you get that in the moment when he's like, "Look, don't." When he tells her, "Don't look, don't turn around." You know. Um, and I do want to point out that from then on, you get something of a completely different character almost. Like you see the deep down heart of gold aspect of him from that point forward. Um, with just a twinge of the sarcastic, witty repartee that you get in an Oda protagonist.
No, definitely true because how everybody was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" It was like you brought this, you caused this monster to come to the city, and he's like, "It's like you know it's coming. Why are you still here?" Like, that was pretty, and I would say,
I think
yeah,
I think there's a good parallel here between this and then in Fishman Island when Luffy and Zoro, like that Luffy says, I don't want to be a hero. A hero is somebody who is expected to share their meat with people, and I want to eat all the meat. And then Zoro says the same thing, but with grog. It's like that's the kind of like that it made me think of that hearing Ryuma kind of talk about, his
yeah.
priorities and what he wants, and
I would say like myself, I would probably just go with an 8 because like with Jay said, there were some pacing things and a mustache man. Because I can't remember his name at the moment. Save the life of me. But
Cyrano de Bergerac.
that one. But there were some things that could have been done different, and I kind of want them to continue this anthology until they make 103 episodes. I want that in my head canon because it's
102 more Dragon Damnations. That's what we need.
exactly. Otherwise, what's the point of the title? Oh man. No, so that's sort of my thoughts on things. As always, Jack, thank you for joining us for this special episode and for this experimental, the fun episode. I had a lot of fun doing this with two of you, and hopefully we'll get the chance to do this again. Maybe even with season 2 of One Piece. We'll have to see, but I feel like kind of like this format. We may have to try this again sometime.
Well, that sounds absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate being here with you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was an absolute blast.
As always, thanks for joining us today, guys, and we'll catch you on the next episode.